Grace, mercy, and peace are yours from God our Father, from our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen. God's word for our message today is from Psalm 88. Lord, you are the God who saves me. Day and night I cry out to you. May my prayer come before you. Turn your ear to my cry. I am overwhelmed with troubles, and my life draws near to death. I am counted among those who go down to the pit. I am like the one without strength. I am set apart with the dead, like the slain who lie in the grave, whom you remember no more, who are cut off from your care. You have put me in the lowest pit, in the darkest depths. Your wrath lies heavily on me. You have overwhelmed me with all your waves. You have taken from me my closest friends and have made me repulsive to them. I am confined and cannot escape. My eyes are dim with grief. I call to you, Lord, every day. I spread out my hands to you. Do you show your wonders to the dead? Do their spirits rise up and praise you? Is your love declared in the grave, your faithfulness in destruction? Are your wonders known in the place of darkness, or your righteous deeds in the land of oblivion? But I cry to you for help, Lord. In the morning, my prayer comes before you. Why, Lord, do you reject me and hide your face from me? From my youth, I have suffered and been close to death. I have borne your terrors and am in despair. Your wrath has swept over me. Your terrors have destroyed me. All day long, they surround me like a flood. They have completely engulfed me. You have taken from me friend and neighbor. Darkness is my closest friend. We save the best for last. What a way to end our Easter series. When I think of Easter, I think of joy, victory, and celebration, and I'm sure most of you do too. This psalm isn't the first one that pops into your head. Maybe you've never even read this one before, but it still sounds familiar, like a song you've heard before a long time ago, or maybe not that long ago. There's something distinct about it, something about it that strikes a chord with everyone that listens to it. And that's because it hits the chord of suffering and all the baggage that comes along with it. Pain, loneliness, despair, and last but not least, depression. You have to be pretty fresh off the boat to think that you can avoid suffering during your life. It's just a fact. Suffering is inescapable. Yeah, it takes different forms for different people, but each of us is going to suffer while we live on this planet in some way, shape, or form. So if suffering is part and parcel of what it means to be a living, breathing human being, why do Christians skirt around the issue and mishandle it so much? Why are we so afraid to talk about it and address it? Is it because we're under-equipped to help ourselves, not to mention someone else when suffering rears its ugly head? Maybe. There's this heartbreaking story from a couple years back about a pastor, the same age as me and everything, who tweeted this: loving Jesus doesn't always cure suicidal thoughts. Loving Jesus doesn't always cure depression. Loving Jesus doesn't always cure PTSD. Loving Jesus doesn't always cure anxiety. But that doesn't mean Jesus doesn't offer us companionship and comfort. He always does that. He said that a few days before this headline was making the rounds. Pastor and mental health advocate Jared Wilson dies by suicide. That story is sad, but that story unsettles us too. We're nervous about agreeing with what Jared Wilson said about suffering and faith. We're afraid to talk the way the author of Psalm 88 talks, because deep down, we think true followers of Jesus aren't supposed to feel that way in the first place, are they? What about faith? Isn't faith confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see? And what about the facts of the gospel? Doesn't the good news of what Jesus did to save us erase all of those negative thoughts? Doesn't real, and I mean real, trust in Jesus remove suffering, or at least give the perfect support? How can anyone with true saving faith in the good news of Jesus really have all of these symptoms of suffering and give into suffering like that? If we do things that way, though, it's not a helpful way to help someone who is suffering. It's not God's way of helping them either. It's pretty easy when someone is really suffering to start making assumptions. If you believe that God is only at work in the victories and high points of your life, then what happens when you face suffering? Then you turn into Job's friends who spent chapter after chapter trying to get Job to spill the beans. What did you do to make God so angry? Because he doesn't do this to his faithful people. Even Jesus' disciples fell into this kind of thinking. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" There's a problem with thinking like that, though. So if you're taking notes, write this down. Moralizing suffering turns suffering into punishment for not being good enough. It's what Job's friends thought. It's how the disciples thought the world works. Suffering is the result of not walking close enough with the Lord. The problem with that, though, is the Bible is full of faithful people suffering. Job is a perfect example of that. He suffered because he had such a close and intimate relationship with God. Jesus warned his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." Or what about Paul, the greatest missionary who's ever lived? He suffered from a thorn in his side that God wouldn't take away. Suffering can't just come down to a simple game of morality. It's deeper than that. But today we tend to fall into the ditch on the other side of the road with suffering. Oprah Winfrey has made her living teaching people to look at suffering as something good and beneficial. Suffering, especially the really traumatic kind, it becomes this blessed opportunity to learn from your pain and emerge on the other side a better and stronger person. So instead of thinking people did something to deserve their troubles, we all seem to believe that people deserve something for their troubles. That there's some sort of karmic suffer now, gain later purpose in suffering. What's the focus on in all of that? Me. Here's another note. Manipulating suffering turns suffering into just an opportunity for self-improvement. In that line of thinking, suffering is just another system that you can crack and control, like the stock market. Suffer now because there are huge payoffs in the future. And it's great when someone can come out on the other side of suffering and find blessings. But they have the benefit of hindsight. When your neighbor tells you their 16-year-old was just diagnosed with a brain tumor, trying to get them to think of how they can manipulate the situation into a chance for personal growth is a good way to lose a friend. And there's one other thing we do with suffering that isn't especially helpful, and I'm as guilty as anyone, maybe even more guilty of this one. Are you guys familiar with Romans 8:28? I bet when I read it, you'll recognize it. We know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Admission time, how many of us have slapped that verse on a suffering Christian like a Band-Aid? We did it. We helped. Or did we just stop the conversation because we said the equivalent of a spiritual shut up and stop your whining? Here's our last note. Minimizing suffering turns suffering into not that big of a deal, even when it is. Don't get me wrong, Romans 8:28 is a beautiful and encouraging verse from God's own mouth. It shares some really important facts with the suffering believer. But we're tricking ourselves if we think those facts will automatically fix feelings. I think we'd all agree with the statement, death is now a part of life. But is that what you'd say to your friend when their father just passed away? Or even worse, we could play the comparison game to minimize suffering. How many well-meaning followers of Jesus have said, this messy divorce you're going through is awful, but at least you don't have cancer. At least you're not Job. No wonder Psalm 88 ends the way it does. It doesn't look like there's a good way to talk about and address suffering, whether it comes up in your life or someone else's. I guess our only option is to just curl up and accept that suffering is inevitable and it isn't any fun. From my youth, I have suffered and been close to death. I have borne your terrors and am in despair. Your wrath has swept over me. Your terrors have destroyed me. All day long, they surround me like a flood. They have completely engulfed me. You have taken from me friend and neighbor. Darkness is my closest friend. Amen. Wait, what? No. There has to be more. This can't be the way it ends. Listen, I can't change the way this song ends. It leaves us hanging. It leaves all the suffering, loneliness, pain, and depression unresolved. And now you know how someone who is going through a traumatic and painful time in their life feels. Like their suffering is this huge gorilla hanging on their back, and it isn't going anywhere. Despite the lack of resolution at the end, there's something being expressed here that is beautiful and awesome. And you don't find it at the end of the psalm. It's at the beginning. Lord, you are the God who saves me. Day and night I cry out to you. May my prayer come before you. Turn your ear to my cry. Maybe I was a little hard on Oprah and the whole manipulating suffering camp earlier, because there is an opportunity in the middle of all of your suffering. It's not for self-improvement or finding a new calling in life, though. Suffering gives us a chance to run, or maybe crawl, to the only one who can help. Suffering exposes our bare longing and naked need for God and something that he can give. When you are plagued by trouble, when you are going through tough time after tough time, what you need is someone to see your suffering, acknowledge it, and just sit there with you. Someone who realizes that not all suffering is something to be cured, but something to be carried. And that's why we cry to the Lord our God, just like this songwriter did in Psalm 88. He knew this is the God who saves and sympathizes. How? For we do not have a high priest who's unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. When you are full on suffering, you can turn to your God, pray, and cry out to him because he gets it. He doesn't just get it, he experienced it. Jesus experienced all the same kind of suffering you do. Pain, loss, abandonment, despair, loneliness, and every other one you can think of. Jesus went through suffering, death, and even hell, so he could be the one we run to when suffering sets in. In fact, our suffering draws us to him and to his cross, so we can lay our sin-sick and troubled souls on him and find the compassionate, empathetic God we are seeking. And when things are at their absolute worst and we feel like we have nowhere else to go, no solution, remember this part of our song today. Do you show your wonders to the dead? Do their spirits rise up and praise you? Is your love declared in the grave, your faithfulness in destruction? Are your wonders known in the place of darkness, or your righteous deeds in the land of oblivion? God, are you with me when I'm on death's doorstep? Can someone praise you after they've lost a loved one? Can I still see your love and faithfulness at the lowest of lows in my life, even when hell itself feels like it's on my shoulders? You know what the answer to all of those rhetorical questions is? Yes, 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 yes. And the reason the answer is yes is because Jesus stood as the conquering king outside of his own tomb, just 3 days after they put him in there, dead. Jesus' resurrection means God shows his awesome power, love, and devotion to you in your suffering, even in death. We get to look at suffering in a brand new way. We can and should talk about suffering because as Christians, God talks about it. It's where we get to experience our God in brand new ways. In those times when you feel like God has withdrawn from and abandoned you, you'll find yourself crying for his return intensely, even desperately, lamenting, like in verses 13 and 14, I cry to you for help, Lord. In the morning my prayer comes before you. Why, Lord, do you reject me and hide your face from me? That's crying for God, not against God. In those moments of pure despair, all you want is to experience the depths of his mercy and the riches of the good news of Jesus in a new, personal way. And suffering drives you to Jesus' cross and empty tomb so you can do exactly that. Suffering is freeing then because it breaks us from our own self-reliance. It has a way of stripping all resources away from us so that in the end, all that we have is the only thing that matters. God's approval based on Jesus' work, not ours. Our sin and imperfection isn't counted against us. Now, I'm not saying you should go out there and purposely look for suffering so you can be free from all the sins and baggage that ails you. I'm just saying, the gospel gives us a new perspective on a topic we usually avoid talking about and helps us understand what's really going on behind the scenes. Maybe I can't give you the perfect solution to suffering. There's a part of me as a man who wants things resolved and fixed, and as a pastor who cares about people and hates to see suffering in your lives. There's a part of me that wishes I could give you a perfect little bow to tie everything up nice and neat and tidy. But I can't, because that's not what God gives us. But he does give us this. He listens. He knows about your suffering. He knows when your life turns into a blues song. So run to him. Run to the God who suffered right alongside you in the flesh and doesn't moralize or minimize your suffering. He knows about it. He hears you. Lord, you are the God who saves me. Day and night I cry out to you. May my prayer come before you. Turn your ear to my cry. I call to you, Lord, every day. I spread out my hands to you. Amen. And now this peace of God that goes beyond all understanding will guard and keep your hearts and minds through faith in Christ Jesus. Amen.